At what point did he put on a shirt? Somebody saw something. Somebody knows something.
I think that the term fully clothed just got taken out of context.
We just want to know what happened and why our baby didn't come home.
I'd say he's pretty hammered. He would slur his words. His movement was slow.
It's not like we didn't ask Nolan or we just left Nolan. Nolan decided to stay on the island with the girl that he was with.
I mean, he's on the phone. Wouldn't you think that you would have seen Nolan on the bottom of on the floor or something? Or scrambling around, or everybody in a small space on the boat looking at him or something. I mean,
What an absolute wild thing to say when so many people have seen this video and slowed it down and noticed that there's either like a hand or a foot or something that comes flying up when they tug on the toe right there. Like, I can't believe that they said that. But please, please, please put out this interview. Please give me something to tear apart. Y'all, I swear I see Warren stop breathing when he starts this sentence, and he doesn't move again until he closes it out. Watch.
4 o'clock in the afternoon on the 4th of July, roughly 10 miles off the Mississippi coast. A boat is taking on water. A teenager gets a private towing company on the line. There is hold music, then voices behind him, and then a dispatcher picks up. Our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? The dispatcher runs through the standard questions. How fast is the water rising? Is everyone on board and in good health? The answer to that second question is yes. Everyone is on board. And that was accurate.
Detail assistant, Vicky speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
What'd you say? Hey.
Yes. How far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down now.
All right. Well, let's get you going. Membership number or phone number listed on the account, sir.
I don't know the phone number. It's either Jerry Atkerson. I think it's Jerry Atkerson. Try that.
All right.
I know we have a membership, like guaranteed. I don't have the tag on
unless you have a membership number or anything, it's okay. I'll get you over to the captain. What's the best phone number to reach you at?
Reach me at 2.
All right. And is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's
How
on
many?
board.
Every person on that vessel was accounted for that afternoon. Every one of them was back on the mainland by evening. But one more person had gone out with that group when it left the dock that morning. He was not on the boat during the call. He was standing on the island, and an hour earlier he had told them he would find his own ride back. Over the past several weeks, this case has been taken over by breakdown videos. One of them, shared millions of times, claims to have found what everybody else missed. This is not a reaction to that video. It is a test of it. Some of what those videos point at is real and sits in state records. Some of it does not exist anywhere outside a phone screen. And the detail that should genuinely concern people is the one most of them skip past. Subscribe before we go further. This channel works from the documents rather than reacting to other people's uploads. It does not accuse anyone who has not been charged, and when the record runs out, we say so. His name was Nolan Xavier Wells. He was born on the 19th of August, 2007 in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, and he was raised there. He graduated from Ocean Springs High School in the spring of 2025. By the summer of 2026 he was 18, a student at Southwest Mississippi Community College, and a wide receiver on the football team. He had a sophomore season coming. Training camp was scheduled to begin right after the holiday, which is the reason the 4th of July was a narrow window rather than a long weekend. He had somewhere to be on the other side of it. On the 3rd of July he had dinner at home with his family. Afterward he left to stay with friends ahead of the holiday. The next morning he got on a boat. What happened to that boat is documented to a degree that almost no death investigation ever achieves. The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources later reconstructed the vessel's entire day from data stored on its onboard navigation system. The boat left the southern shore of Mississippi at 9:56 in the morning. It reached the western tip of Horn Island at 11:14. Horn Island sits roughly 10 miles out in the Mississippi Sound. It is a barrier island, part of Gulf Island's national seashore, administered by the National Park Service. Nobody lives there. There are no roads and no buildings on it. There are no cell towers. On a holiday weekend it fills with hundreds of boats and hundreds of people who anchor off the sand for the afternoon. By evening it empties out again, and what is left is a strip of beach with no infrastructure and no way to reach anyone. Photographs taken on the boat that morning show Nolan with the group. He is 6'1", the tallest person in the frame, one arm across a friend's shoulders. At approximately 3 in the afternoon, according to the account the group later gave investigators, he told them he would get a ride back with someone else. He was last seen on the northwest end of the island. Blue swim trunks. Sunglasses. That is the final confirmed sighting of Nolan Wells. And it marks the beginning of the pattern that runs through this entire case. Everything here is either recorded to the exact minute, or it is not recorded at all. There is almost nothing in between. About an hour after that last sighting, the boat developed a mechanical problem. The bilge pump had failed. A bilge pump is a small automatic pump that clears water out of the lowest part of a hull. Every boat takes on some water through spray, rain, and minor leaks, and the pump is what stops it building up. When the pump stops, the water does not. That is when the call went out to Sea Tow, a private marine assistance company. The caller gave the dispatcher a set of GPS coordinates placing the vessel just off the northwest tip of the island. The dispatcher asked how far the water had come up inside the boat. The caller said he did not know. He said only that it was coming up and that they were going down. The dispatcher asked what he wanted done. He asked to be towed back. Sea Tow never reached them. In a statement later provided to NBC News, the company said that before any assistance was rendered, the owner of the vessel advised that help had already been obtained from another source. Sea Tow's involvement ended at that point. The help came from another boat in the area, operated by a 21-year-old. On the recording, the caller can be heard asking him to pull the plug while underway. That is a genuine technique on a small vessel. Opening the drain plug at speed allows water to run out the back as the hull lifts and the stern rises. From there, the navigation data picks the story back up, and the precision of it is remarkable. The boat left the island at 4:31 in the afternoon. It was towed for roughly 2 3/4 miles, moving at somewhere between 0.06 and 4.2 knots. That is barely faster than drifting. Then the log shows normal operation resuming. The vessel accelerated to 34 knots. It entered Fort Bayou at 5:52. It reached the dock at 6:06. At 7:19 that evening it was at the Fort Bayou boat launch. And from there, the tracking shows it moving over land, which almost certainly means it was on a trailer behind a vehicle, to a residence in Biloxi. Now consider what all of that data can and cannot tell you. It establishes where a vessel traveled, to the minute and to the knot. It does not establish who was aboard it. And it has nothing whatsoever to say about what was happening on an island after the boat pulled away from it. Around 11 o'clock that night, a friend is reported to have contacted the Coast Guard. Minutes later, Christine Wells Wansley received a phone call from Warren Hudson, one of the friends who had been on the island that day. The public record does not establish whether those were the same contact or two separate ones. That is worth saying plainly, because it is one of the details the internet has spent weeks filling in with guesswork. The documents do not answer it. What the documents do answer is what happened next. At approximately 11:45, the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources opened a missing person call under case number 2607-0196. The entry records Wells Wansley's report. It records the account that her son was last seen around 3 in the afternoon. And it records that Nolan's phone was in a friend's truck. Then the process stalled. Wells Wansley has described back and forth between agencies that night over who actually had authority, because Horn Island sits out in the Mississippi Sound rather than on the mainland. Jurisdiction was not immediately clear. At one point that night, Nolan's parents met a deputy in a McDonald's parking lot to give their account of everything they knew. Understand what that means. A mother reporting her 18-year-old son missing from an island with no roads, no shelter and no cell service was passed between agencies and ended up giving her statement in a fast food car park. And there was a reason the response did not escalate faster. A Marine Resources Marine Patrol report records that several of the friends who traveled with Wells told deputies that when they left the island, he was in the company of an unknown female, and that he had chosen to remain behind. At 1:38 in the morning on the 5th of July, records show the sheriff's office was working from that same explanation, that Nolan had stayed with an unknown woman and would come back on another vessel. The records note that no water-related emergency was perceived at that time. That single assumption shaped the entire first night. Javon Williams, a friend who had seen Nolan on the island that day, has since said publicly that the account does not square with the person he knew. The formal escalation came the following afternoon. At 12:26 p.m. on the 5th of July, Coast Guard Sector Mobile received a request for assistance from the Jackson County Sheriff's Office for a missing person in the vicinity of Horn Island. An urgent marine information broadcast went out. A helicopter was launched. 5 minutes later, at 12:31, the Sheriff's Office issued its public release, which means roughly 13 hours passed between the first phone call about Nolan Wells and the moment a formal search request reached the Coast Guard. That gap is not a theory. It is in the agency records. On the afternoon of the 5th of July, Marine Resources flew 2 drone missions over the western side of Horn Island. Neither flight finished. According to police documents, the heat that day caused the drone batteries to swell, and both flights were cut short. Nothing was located. That detail says everything you need to know about the conditions out there. This is a treeless sandbar in the Gulf of Mexico in July, hot enough to disable equipment built to work in it. The following morning, Monday the 6th of July, just before 8:45, a National Park Service ranger located a body on the northwest end of the island, the same end where Nolan Wells had last been seen 2 days earlier. Sheriff John Ledbetter said it matched the description. Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lind confirmed the identification through dental records. Lind received the body the day it was found. He stated publicly that there were no immediate, obvious signs of trauma. That statement has been repeated constantly since, and it has been read far more broadly than he intended it. It refers to what was visible on external examination at that stage. It is not a cause of death, and Lind never presented it as one. His office requested a full autopsy from the state medical examiner precisely because the circumstances were uncertain. That state autopsy was performed on the 7th of July. 15 days later, the family arranged a second, independent examination. It was performed by Dr. Roger A. Mitchell, Jr., the former chief medical examiner for the District of Columbia and president of the National Medical Association, and it was funded through an initiative backed by former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick. The preliminary findings were announced on the 22nd of July at the NAACP National Convention in Chicago. Cause of death, undetermined. Manner of death, undetermined. Mitchell explained why in his own report, and the reasons are structural rather than mysterious. The first examination had already taken place, and that work cannot be reversed. Certain structures from the neck had been retained by the state, which Mitchell noted is standard practice where there is any question of compression or fracture. Because he did not have them, he could not exclude neck injury as a contributing factor. The original toxicology was not available to him, and he could not directly assess the airway and the lungs for the presence of water. That last limitation is the most consequential thing in this entire case. The presence of water in the airway indicates a person was breathing when they entered the water. Its absence points somewhere else entirely. It is the single observation that separates drowning from every other possibility, and Mitchell was not in a position to make it. What he did document was limited. No fractures. No lacerations. No deep tissue injuries across extended examination. One localized area of red discoloration in soft tissue at the back of the head, the cause of which he could not determine. He closed with 7 outstanding questions. Among them, what caused Nolan Wells to enter the water at all, and whether water was present in his airway. Every one of those questions is answerable. The state holds the retained material, the completed toxicology and the full investigative file. And that report is sealed. District Attorney Angel Myers-McElrath has explained that every death in the county other than natural causes and non-criminal traffic deaths is presented to a grand jury, and that her office has handled death investigations this way for her entire career. A grand jury answers one narrow question: whether probable cause exists. Nolan's phone did not stay with him. It came back to the mainland with the group. And that evening, Christine Wells Wansley found it on a location-sharing app, sitting at an address it had no reason to be at. Elmore Wansley went to collect his son's belongings. The family has said publicly that they had difficulty getting those items back. When the phone was in their hands, Christine and her sister went through it together. What they say they found is the origin of everything that has been argued about since. According to the family, Nolan used Snapchat constantly. He posted and captured everything. And they say that when they opened the device, there was nothing on it from roughly the previous day. Now, here is the distinction that almost every breakdown video on this case has failed to make, and it is the reason this argument has run for 6 weeks without moving an inch. Looking at a phone and forensically extracting one are not the same act. A forensic extraction does not read the screen. It reads the underlying file system. It recovers data the application no longer displays. It applies timestamps to that data. And critically, it logs whether a deletion event took place and the exact moment it happened. None of that can be determined by scrolling. There are also explanations for an empty window that involve nobody doing anything at all. Content on certain platforms is designed to expire. A device with no signal cannot sync, and there are no cell towers on Horn Island. A phone that has run flat and been powered off will show gaps that no person created. So the single question the internet has been fighting about for 6 weeks is a question that could be answered permanently and in either direction in one afternoon. It has not been answered. And the argument over why has now split into 3 positions, all of them on the record, all of them from attorneys speaking publicly. J. Tyler Cox, who represents 3 of Nolan's friends, appeared on SiriusXM with host Dan Abrams. He said he believes the Wells family has not cooperated with law enforcement. He said he does not believe they have turned in Nolan's phone. He said he would bet his reputation on it. Ahmad Smith, an attorney for the family, wrote to prosecutors rejecting that outright. He stated that any suggestion the family has been unwilling or has failed to cooperate is not accurate, and that his clients remain ready to finalize the details of the examination. Then Liza Park, a member of Ben Crump's team, said something at the National Association of Black Journalists convention in Atlanta that barely registered in the coverage. She said the district attorney's office, the family's forensic team, and possibly the FBI have all agreed to a joint examination. One download. Performed a single time. Every party present in the same room. And she said they are still waiting on prosecutors to give them a time and a place. Set those 2 positions beside each other. One attorney says the phone has never been handed over. The other says every party has already agreed, and they are waiting on a date. That is the detail everyone missed. Not a secret buried in the data. A scheduling delay that has been publicly recast as a cover-up. Because the most damaging claim in this entire dispute, the suggestion that a grieving family is sitting on evidence in their own son's death, was made by opposing counsel on a radio program with no document behind it. While all of that remained unresolved, something else was growing in the space where the answer should have been. 3 people have now been charged federally with making threats connected to this investigation. None of them appear to have any connection to Nolan Wells, to his family, or to anyone who was on the water that day. Edward James Porter, 33, of Berwyn, Illinois, is accused of making repeated threatening calls on the 31st of July to 2 witnesses, including threats against their families, and was transferred by U.S. Marshals from Chicago to Mississippi. Michelle Francine Edwards, of Cincinnati, is charged with transmitting a threatening communication in interstate commerce over roughly 29 calls placed on the 23rd of July to the George County Chancery Clerk's Office and the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, and a federal judge issued a warrant for her arrest last week after she failed to appear at a hearing in Gulfport. Joseph Alfredo Vasquez Dumars of California, was charged on the 14th of July over an alleged threatening message sent to a Jackson County Chancery Court judge connected to the case. 3 strangers in 3 different states who watched the same videos this audience did and decided they had learned enough to act on it. At the same time, artificial videos of Nolan's mother have circulated widely enough that she has publicly identified several of them as fabricated. State officials have separately warned that forged case documents are being passed around online as though they were real. Warren Hudson, Jack Spatalo, and Morgan Seymour have retained counsel after reporting threats of their own. Their attorneys state that all 3 are innocent. No one has been arrested or charged in connection with Nolan's death. So sorted honestly because that is the only thing separating this from noise. Confirmed. The timings. The vessel reconstruction. The recovery on the 6th of July. The completed and sealed state autopsy. Claimed. The family's account of the empty window, and every attorney's statement in this dispute. Unverified. Altered photographs. An unidentified person in images. Additional vessels in the area. Unverified does not mean false. It means unproven. And the distance between those 2 things is why 3 people who never met Nolan Wells are now facing federal charges. Where it stands tonight is 3 sentences. The autopsy is finished and sealed. The phone is recovered and unopened. The grand jury has not convened. Nolan Wells was born on the 19th of August. His mother has said that other parents still have their children to call and to hold, and that she does not. The boat that carried him out that morning is documented to the minute and to the knot, from the dock to the driveway it ended up in that night. There is no equivalent record for the person it left behind. When that grand jury convenes, this channel will break down exactly what follows. What a no bill means in Mississippi. What an indictment would mean. Which parts of that sealed file become reviewable either way. And whether the 7 questions written down in July finally get answered. Subscribe so you see it the day it happens.